They tossed me aside like yesterday's garbage. My own kids. While I sat in that nursing home, surrounded by the smell of antiseptic and defeat, they were back at my place, measuring walls for renovations and arguing over who'd snagged the master bedroom. They thought I was senile, confused, too old to get what was going on. But I understood everything. I kept quiet because sometimes the best revenge is the kind they never see coming. I'm Lorraine Mitchell, and before I share what I did to my betraying children, I want to know where you're watching from. Drop your city and state in the comments. It feels good to know I'm not alone in this because what I'm about to tell you might sound unbelievable, but every word is true. I'm 72, and I raised 3 kids in Portland, Oregon. Jennifer, my oldest at 48, Michael, my 45-year-old middle child, and Rebecca, my youngest at 42. Their dad, Robert, passed away 6 years ago from a sudden heart attack, leaving me our house, fully paid off, worth about $800,000 now. He also left me his life insurance, pension, and investments we built over 40 years of marriage. I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable and independent. At least, that's what I thought. About a year after Robert died, Jennifer started calling more often. At first, I thought she was just being sweet, checking in on her widowed mom. Mom, are you eating enough? Did you pay the water bill? Maybe you should come stay with us for a while. Little questions, little concerns that planted seeds of doubt in everyone's mind, including mine. Then came the doctor's appointments. Jennifer insisted on taking me. Just routine checkups, Mom. You need to stay on top of things. She'd sit in the exam room answering questions for me before I could even speak. She's been forgetting things, doctor. Yesterday she couldn't remember where she put her keys. I wasn't forgetting anything, just misplaced my keys once, like anyone else. Sometimes I was confused about the day of the week, but that's what happens when you're retired and living alone. But Jennifer made it sound like I was losing my mind. Next, Michael started popping by unannounced, just checking on me. He'd walk through the house, touching everything. I once caught him in Robert's study, rifling through the desk drawers. I'm looking for Dad's old fishing gear, he said. That gear had been in the garage for 20 years, and he knew it. Rebecca was quieter, visiting and sighing heavily. This house is so big, Mom. How do you manage it all by yourself? Aren't you lonely? Then she'd wander around commenting on everything. These stairs are dangerous. This carpet is a tripping hazard. You really shouldn't live here alone. That's when I started paying attention. I'm not a fool. I've lived long enough to spot a pattern. And what I was seeing scared me. My kids weren't worried about my safety. They were worried about their inheritance. The pressure ramped up over the next 3 months. They started working together, which should have been my first red flag. My kids never worked together. Jennifer and Rebecca hadn't spoken in 5 years after a fight about Thanksgiving seating. But suddenly, they were a united front, a 3-person army against their mom. They called a family meeting. All 3 showed up at my house one Saturday morning, serious faces and gentle voices. That's when I knew something awful was coming. Jennifer did most of the talking. Mom, we need to talk about your living situation, she said, reaching across the table to pat my hand like I was a child. We've been talking and comparing notes. You're forgetting things. You seem confused sometimes. Last week, Rebecca said I called her by Dad's name. I'd called her Honey, which is what Robert used to call me. I corrected myself right away, but Rebecca twisted it to make it sound like I was losing touch with reality. We think it's time you move somewhere safer, Michael added. Somewhere with people around, professional care, just in case. In case of what? I asked, keeping my voice calm while my heart raced. In case you fall, in case you forget to turn off the stove, in case you need help and there's no one around, Jennifer said, pulling out a glossy brochure. We found this beautiful assisted living facility. It's got everything: activities, nurses on staff, restaurant-style dining. You'd love it. I glanced at the brochure, Meadowbrook Senior Living. The pictures showed elderly people painting, playing cards, smiling those vacant smiles that people put on for brochures. It looked nice enough, but I didn't want nice enough. I wanted my home, the one I'd lived in for 37 years, where I raised my kids and built my life. I'm not interested, I said, pushing the brochure back. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees as I watched their faces change. The concern slipped just enough for me to see the frustration, impatience, and anger underneath. "Mom, you're not thinking clearly," Jennifer said, her voice sharp. "This isn't about what you want. It's about what's safe, what's responsible." "What's responsible is letting me make my own decisions about my life," I replied. That's when Rebecca started crying. Actual tears. "We're just trying to help you, Mom. Why are you being so difficult? Don't you trust us?" And there it was. The manipulation, the guilt trip, the implication that if I didn't do what they wanted, I was the bad guy. I looked at my kids sitting at my table in my house, trying to take control of my life. "Let me think about it," I said. That was my first mistake, showing my hand. I should have stayed silent. I was hurt and confused. I had given them everything, sacrificed for them, loved them unconditionally, and here they were plotting to put me away so they could get to my assets. After they left, I sat alone and cried, deep, body-shaking sobs from a place I didn't know existed. The betrayal hurt worse than anything I'd ever experienced, even worse than Robert's death, because at least that wasn't his choice. My kids were actively choosing to discard me, to erase my autonomy, treating me like an obstacle between them and their inheritance. But grief has a funny way of turning into something else when you sit with it long enough. Mine turned into clarity. I stopped crying and started thinking, really thinking. If my kids were going to treat me like I was incompetent, then I'd let them. I'd play the role they'd written for me. Over the next 2 weeks, I did my research, calling lawyers without telling my kids. I reviewed every document Robert and I had ever signed: our will, the trust, the deed to the house, everything. I discovered something my kids clearly hadn't bothered to check. Everything was in my name. Robert had set it up that way on purpose. He told me years ago, "If something happens to me, you're in complete control. No one can touch any of it without your signature." Now, I just needed to protect myself from the people I'd brought into this world. The calls from my kids ramped up, daily check-ins that felt more like surveillance than concern. Jennifer started showing up with pre-printed forms. "Just some paperwork, Mom. Healthcare proxy, power of attorney, standard stuff everyone does at your age. Just sign here." I played confused, overwhelmed. "Oh, honey, this is so much. Can I read through it first? My eyes are tired." "Of course, Mom," she'd say with that patient smile that didn't reach her eyes. "But don't wait too long. These things are important." I never signed anything, but I let them think I might. Meanwhile, I was making my own plans. I hired a private investigator. Yes, a real one. I wanted to know how deep this betrayal went. What I found out made my blood run cold. My kids had already contacted real estate agents about selling my house. They'd gotten appraisals and talked about splitting the proceeds 3 ways. Michael had even looked into cashing out my investment accounts. They'd planned everything except for one thing. I was still alive, still competent, and still the sole owner of every single asset they were already mentally spending. That's when I knew I couldn't just refuse them. I had to do something bigger, something they'd never forget. The final push came on a Tuesday morning in March. All 3 kids showed up unannounced, obviously coordinated. Jennifer had a folder full of documents, Michael had a laptop, and Rebecca had tissues ready for the tears she'd inevitably cry. They were staging an intervention. "Mom, we need to talk," Jennifer said, her voice artificially gentle. "We've been patient. We've given you time to think, but this has gone on long enough. You're not safe here alone." Last week, the neighbor called Michael and said, "You left your porch light on for 3 days straight." I had left it on intentionally while reading late at night, but they made it sound like I was losing my grip on reality. "We've made arrangements," Michael continued, opening his laptop. "Meadowbrook has an opening, a beautiful room on the second floor with a view of the garden. We've already paid the deposit." "You paid the deposit?" I asked quietly. "With whose money?" "With your money, Mom," Rebecca said, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away. "We have power of attorney. Remember, you signed the papers last month." I had signed no such papers, but they were lying so smoothly I almost believed them. Almost. "I don't remember signing anything," I said, making my voice shake a bit. "That's exactly why you need professional care," Jennifer said, pulling out more papers. "Mom, we love you. We want what's best for you. These papers transfer the house into a family trust. It protects you, protects all of us. We'll sell the house, put the money somewhere safe, and use it to pay for your care at Meadowbrook. You'll never have to worry about anything again. They'd thought of everything except that I had already talked to my lawyer, who assured me that any documents signed under duress or while being declared incompetent could be challenged. More importantly, I had started moving money quietly, little bits at a time, into new accounts they knew nothing about. But I wasn't ready to show my hand yet, so I did something I never thought I'd do. I gave in. Okay, I said, my voice small and defeated. If you really think it's best. The relief on their faces was almost comical. They thought they'd won. Jennifer pulled out a pen. Just sign here, Mom, and here. This one's the house deed transfer. This one's the financial power of attorney. This one authorizes us to access your accounts. I signed, my hand shaking, not from fear, but from rage. I signed every paper they put in front of me while they watched with barely concealed excitement. When I finished, Jennifer gathered the papers like they were precious artifacts. We'll get you moved in this weekend, she announced. Michael and I will pack up your essentials. Rebecca will help you settle in at Meadowbrook. What about my house? I asked. What about my things? We'll take care of everything, Michael assured me. Don't worry about it. We'll handle the sale, the estate, clean out, all of it. You just focus on getting comfortable in your new home. They moved me into Meadowbrook on a Saturday. Spring was trying to break through the last bits of winter, but the sky was gray and cold, appropriate for a funeral, I thought, because that's what this felt like. My room was exactly as the brochure promised. Clean, sterile, with neutral beige walls and framed prints of flowers that meant nothing. A hospital bed, a small desk, and a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. Through the window, I could see the beautiful garden they mentioned, a sad little courtyard with 2 benches and struggling shrubs. Jennifer unpacked my clothes into the narrow closet while Rebecca arranged photos on the desk. Robert and me on our wedding day, the kids as children, family Christmas cards from years past, evidence of a life I lived that they were now filing away like old receipts. This is nice, isn't it, Mom? Rebecca asked with forced cheerfulness. So cozy. Cozy? As if any prison cell could be cozy with the right decorations. Michael was on his phone in the corner, texting. I caught a glimpse of his screen. She's settled in. We can start on the house Monday. He saw me looking and smiled. Just letting the realtor know we're ready to list the property. Already? I asked, playing my role. Don't you want to wait a bit? No point in waiting, Mom, Jennifer said, closing the closet door decisively. The market's good right now. The faster we sell, the better. Honestly, maintaining an empty house is just throwing money away. They stayed for about an hour, made small talk with the nurses, complimented the facility, and introduced me to my neighbors, other elderly residents who shuffled by like ghosts. Then they left, all 3 of them together, probably heading straight to my house to start dividing up their spoils. I sat on that hospital bed and smiled because they had no idea what I'd done, what I was about to do. Remember those papers I signed? My lawyer had prepared something special for me. They looked identical to the real documents my kids wanted. Same formatting, same legalese, but they were worthless. They transferred nothing, authorized nothing. They were elaborate props in a play my children thought they were directing. The real papers, the ones that mattered, were in a safe deposit box in a bank 3 towns over, a bank none of my kids knew about. Those papers put everything into an irrevocable trust with me as the sole trustee. My house, my investments, my money, everything. My kids couldn't touch any of it without my explicit written consent. And I'd made sure that consent was impossible to forge. I had also done something else, something they'd discover soon enough. I hired a property management company. The house they thought was sitting empty, waiting to be sold, had been legally rented out the day after I moved into Meadowbrook. A 6-month lease paid in full up front, which meant they couldn't sell it, even if they wanted to. The renters had legal rights to stay through the end of the lease period. But I wasn't going to tell my kids any of this. Not yet. I wanted to watch them celebrate first. They came to visit me Sunday afternoon, all dressed up like they were going to church, probably a place they hadn't attended in a while. They brought flowers, cheap carnations from the grocery store, and sat in my tiny room, making plans for my life like I wasn't even there. "The realtor is coming Tuesday for photos," Jennifer announced, scrolling through her phone, probably looking at furniture for the master bedroom she'd already claimed. "We should have it listed by Friday. She thinks we can get $850,000, maybe even $900,000 if we price it right." $900,000? Rebecca repeated, her eyes going distant with calculation. "Split 3 ways, that's $300,000 each. I could finally renovate my kitchen." "I'm putting mine toward Jackson's college fund," Michael said, sounding virtuous, like that made his greed noble. They talked about my house like it was already theirs, discussing paint colors for walls they hadn't inherited, debating whether to stage it or sell it as is. Not once did they ask how I was feeling or if I needed anything. I was furniture to them now, part of the estate they were liquidating. "What about my things?" I asked quietly. "My furniture, Robert's belongings, our wedding china." Jennifer waved her hand dismissively. "We'll go through everything, Mom. Keep what's valuable, donate the rest, don't worry about it. But some of those things have sentimental value. We'll handle it," Michael interrupted. "You don't need to stress about any of this. That's why we're taking care of it for you." Taking care of it? More like taking it. They stayed for about 30 minutes. Then Jennifer checked her watch. "We should go. We have that meeting with the estate attorney at 4. "Estate attorney?" I asked. "But I'm not dead." "Of course not, Mom," Rebecca said, patting my hand. "It's just planning, making sure everything's organized. You understand?" I understood perfectly. They were dividing up my estate while I sat in a nursing home, still breathing, still alive, still legally in control of everything they thought they had already taken. After they left, I sat in that beige room and laughed, actually laughed out loud. An aide passing in the hallway gave me a concerned look, probably thinking I'd lost my mind. Let her think it. Let everyone think it. Because while my kids were measuring my house for renovations, I was measuring my revenge. That night, I called my lawyer from the phone in my room. "It's time," I told him. "Start the process." "Are you sure?" he asked. "Once we do this, there's no going back." I'd never been more sure of anything in my life. "All right," he said. I could hear papers rustling on his end. "I'll file the paperwork tomorrow. The property management company will notify the tenants. Everything else is already in motion." "How long?" I asked. "2 weeks, maybe 3. Then you'll be free." Free? Such a strange word for a 72-year-old woman sitting in a nursing home. But that's exactly what I'd be, free from the kids who tried to bury me, free from the life they tried to steal, and very, very rich from the justice I was about to claim. Monday morning, my phone rang. Jennifer. She was crying, actually crying. "Mom, there are people in your house, strangers. They say they live there. They have a lease." I kept my voice confused. "Elderly? A lease? I don't understand, honey. Someone rented out the house. The realtor can't even get in to take photos. There's furniture everywhere, and a couple with a baby have legal paperwork saying they can stay for 6 months." "Oh my," I said, letting my voice quaver. "How strange. Maybe you should talk to a lawyer." She hung up on me. I smiled. Round 1 had gone exactly as planned. Tuesday, Michael showed up, angry and red-faced, pacing my tiny room like a caged animal. "Mom, we need access to your financial accounts. The papers you signed aren't working. The bank says they need additional verification." "What papers?" I asked innocently. "The power of attorney papers, the ones you signed last week." "Mom, focus. This is important. We need to pay for this place, and we need access to your money to do it." "I have money," I said, "don't I?" "Yes, but we can't access it, and the house situation is a nightmare. We have lawyers looking at it, but they're saying the lease is legal, ironclad. The tenants can stay through August, and there's nothing we can do about it." "That's terrible," I said, shaking my head. "Your father would be so upset." Michael looked at me like he was trying to see inside my head, trying to figure out if I was actually confused or just playing him. I kept my face blank and pleasant. He left frustrated, and I stayed satisfied. Wednesday, all 3 of them came together, and this wasn't a friendly visit. Jennifer had a lawyer with her, a young guy in an expensive suit carrying a briefcase like it was a weapon. "Mrs. Mitchell," he began. "I'm Todd Branson. Your children have retained me to review some concerning financial irregularities regarding your estate. How nice, I said. Would anyone like some tea? They have terrible tea here, but I can call for some. Mom, focus, Jennifer snapped. Mr. Branson needs to ask you some questions. For 20 minutes, they grilled me. Where were my account statements? Who had I talked to about the house? Had I signed any other documents? Did I remember authorizing a rental property agreement? I played confused and forgetful, sometimes losing the thread of a question halfway through answering it. Sometimes I'd go off on tangents about Robert or the weather or something I saw on TV. The lawyer finally closed his briefcase. I'll need to see all original documents, bank records, property deeds, everything. Of course, I said sweetly. They're all in my house, in Robert's study, top drawer of his desk. The house we can't access, Michael said through gritted teeth. Oh, I replied. That is a problem, isn't it? Thursday morning, I signed myself out of Meadowbrook. The nurses were surprised. Mrs. Mitchell, your children said you'd be staying with us permanently. Don't you want to call them first? No need, I told her, pulling my coat on. I'm perfectly capable of making my own decisions. I was never incompetent, just patient. The look on her face was priceless. I had been playing confused old lady so well that even the staff believed it. But I was done playing. I took a taxi to my bank, the one 3 towns over, the one my kids knew nothing about. I walked in, showed my ID, and asked to access my safe deposit box. Inside was everything that mattered. Real deeds, real account info, real power of attorney documents I had never signed over to anyone, and cashier's checks, lots of them. I had been slowly liquidating everything for the past 3 months, selling stocks, cashing out bonds, converting it all to liquid assets my kids couldn't track. I need to close my box, I told the bank manager, and I need to wire some funds. By Friday afternoon, I had liquidated everything. The house was already under contract. I sold it privately to the tenants who'd been renting it. They'd fallen in love with it, wanted to buy it immediately, and offered me $885,000 cash. Done. I converted Robert and my investments to cash and wired it to a new account. When everything was tallied up, I had $2,300,000, give or take a few thousand for transaction fees and lawyer costs. $2.3 million that my kids thought was theirs, that they had already spent in their minds, that they betrayed me to get. Saturday morning, I boarded a plane. I won't tell you where I went. That's my secret. But it's warm here. The ocean is blue, and nobody knows who I am or where I came from. Before I left, I sent one email to all 3 of my kids. It was short. Dear Jennifer, Michael, and Rebecca, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. The house is sold. The money is moved. Everything you tried to steal from me has vanished. You treated me like I was already dead, so I decided to give you what you wanted, a mother who's gone. The difference is I took my life with me. You get nothing. No inheritance, no house, no money, nothing but the memory of how you threw away your mother for greed. I hope it was worth it. I won't be in touch. Don't bother looking for me. You lost that right when you put me in that nursing home. Consider this my final lesson to you. Respect your parents while they're alive, or regret it when they're gone. I'm not gone, but to you, I might as well be. Goodbye, Mom. If you think they deserve this, hit that subscribe button right now because what happened next is even better. 6 months later, I was sitting on a balcony overlooking the ocean, reading a book and drinking real coffee, nothing like the dishwater they served at Meadowbrook. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Mom? It was Rebecca, her voice shaking and tearful. Mom, is that you? Who's calling? I asked calmly. It's Rebecca. Mom, please, we need to talk. We've been trying to find you for months. We hired an investigator. We filed missing person reports. The police said you weren't missing, that you left voluntarily, but we didn't know where you were or if you were okay. I'm fine, I said. Better than fine, actually. Mom, please come home. We made a mistake. We're so sorry. We were just worried about you, and we handled it wrong. You weren't worried about me, I interrupted. You were worried about yourselves, about money, about what you could get from me. Silence on the other end. That's not fair, she finally said. Tell me, Rebecca, what would have happened if I'd really been incompetent, if I'd really needed care? Would you have visited me at Meadowbrook? Or would you have sold my house, taken my money, and forgotten about me in that beige room? More silence. We would have visited, she finally said, but her voice lacked conviction. No, you wouldn't have. You'd have convinced yourselves you were too busy, that I wouldn't remember anyway, that it was too hard to see me like that, and eventually your visits would have stopped altogether. I would have died alone in that nursing home while you three argued over which of you got my wedding ring. Mom, I'm not your mother anymore, I said. Not in any way that matters. You made sure of that when you decided I was more valuable dead than alive. Well, congratulations. You got your wish. I'm dead to you now. Enjoy your inheritance of nothing. We're contesting the sale, she said, her voice hardening. Our lawyer says we can prove you weren't competent when you sold the house, that you were confused, that someone took advantage of you. I laughed. Actually laughed. Go ahead and try. I have documentation of every decision I made, medical evaluations showing perfect cognitive function, lawyer testimony, witness statements, everything. You'll spend what money you have left on legal fees and still lose because I was always competent. I was just smarter than you thought. The family is falling apart because of this, Rebecca said. Jennifer and Michael aren't speaking. Jennifer's husband is talking about divorce because of the financial stress. Michael had to take out a loan because he'd already spent money he didn't have. This is destroying all of us. Good, I said. You destroyed me first. Consider us even. Mom, please. Blocked the number, poured myself another cup of coffee, and watched the waves crash against the shore. Somewhere 3,000 miles away, my kids were dealing with the consequences of their choices, learning that actions have reactions, that betrayal has a price. And I was here, free, rich, and finally, at peace. That phone call was 3 months ago. I haven't heard from them since. I assume they've given up, realized I meant what I said. Or maybe they're still looking, still hoping to find me and somehow guilt me into giving them what they think they deserve. Either way, it doesn't matter. I've moved on. You might think this story ends with me being bitter, angry, haunted by the family I left behind, but that's not how this ends. This ends with me living the life I should have been living all along. I've made friends here, real friends, people who like me for who I am, not what I can give them. I volunteer at a local library 3 days a week. I've taken up painting, something I always wanted to do, but never had time for while raising kids and managing a household. I'm terrible at it, but that's not the point. The point is, I'm doing what I want when I want for the first time in my adult life. I think about Robert sometimes, wondering what he'd think of all this. Part of me believes he'd be proud. He loved our children, but he loved me more. He'd have been devastated to see how they treated me, how they tried to erase me from my own life, and he'd have approved of how I fought back. Robert always said I was stronger than I gave myself credit for. It turns out he was right. As for my kids, I don't hate them. Hate takes energy I'm not willing to spend. But I don't forgive them either. Forgiveness requires remorse on their part, and the only thing they're sorry for is getting caught. They're sorry they lost the money. They're not sorry they hurt me. I've rewritten my will. Everything I have goes to charity when I die. Scholarships for elderly women going back to school, funds for elder abuse prevention, organizations that help seniors maintain their independence. My kids won't see a penny of it. They already got everything they're going to get from me. A lesson in consequences. People ask me sometimes if I have any regrets, if I wish I'd handled it differently. The answer is no. I gave my kids every chance to be decent human beings, to treat me with the respect I'd earned over 72 years of living. They chose greed instead. They chose themselves, so I chose me. I'm 73 now. I don't know how many years I have left, could be 5, could be 20. But however many I have, they're mine. Not my kids, not the nursing homes, mine. I'll spend them how I want, where I want, with people who actually care about me. When I die, I'll die on my own terms, not in some beige room with artificial flowers waiting for kids who never visit. I'll die somewhere beautiful, having lived a life worth living, having stood up for myself when it mattered most. That's my story, my revenge, my justice, and it's the best ending I could have asked for. The moral? Don't underestimate your elders. We've survived this long for a reason, and sometimes the quietest people make the loudest exits. Kindly subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video with love and respect.